Great question concerning nutrient solution temperature. Is it really that big of a deal? And how can we control it? So, nutrient solution temperature is one of the parameters that we have to control. Just like everything, just like growing is all about controlling our parameters. Nutrient solution temperature is one of those parameters. So first off, the grower was saying that he's been losing some plants, and he thinks potentially it is his nutrient solution temperature, and maybe it is. If you're growing plants in 80-degree Fahrenheit water, you're going to have some challenges. That's going to be tough. That's really pushing the limits of where you can grow plants in hydroponics. But in my experience, and again, this really depends on where you live and the temperatures you're dealing with. In my growing environment and where I grow, I never use a chiller, and I have great results. And my solution stays in the 70s. It'll be anywhere from 72, 74 to sometimes up to 78 degrees, but without a problem. But the thing there is like asking, like, what's killing my plants? Who knows what's killing your plants, really? It's there could be so many things, right? From you know what's it called, viroid latent hops, latent viroid disease, or there's things that are in seeds and plants that they're not going to thrive anywhere. So if you can't get plants to thrive, you may need to change your genetics or your seeds. You may have poor water quality, so you're introducing stuff into your into your solution, so that you don't have a nutrient solution that is in good condition. So as soon as it gets warm at all, really all the things that you don't want in there to take hold, right? And it could be your environment. There's so many things there, but let's just talk about the nutrient solution itself. One thing: do you need a chiller? Is it really the end all be all to deep water culture? Absolutely not. You can grow without a chiller. You can have amazing results. You can have amazing harvests, and you don't need a chiller. That doesn't mean a chiller won't give you better results. Sure, if you have a chiller and you're dialed into 68 degrees, 64 to 68 degrees, I've grown with a chiller before. When we dial in everything, we get our best results, because the colder the nutrient solution is, the more oxygen it can hold. That's what we're talking about. And the more oxygen it can hold, the more oxygen it can deliver to the plant, but also the higher the oxygen content in the water, the more it, if you will, displaces potential things to grow in there. Once we have very low oxygen content with warm water, that's when we get these things that start to grow in our water and get onto our roots and infect our roots. So how do we control our nutrient solution temperature? The one question was, do frozen water bottles work with a hydro bucket? I mean, absolutely, right? You can drop a frozen water bottle in there, and you can change that out in the morning. You can change it out in the evening, and that's going to take off, maybe 5 degrees from your nutrient solution, and make a significant difference, and maybe just make the difference that you need to just get it down to that point where it's in a better level, so you're not hitting 80 degrees. Other things to consider, though: how warm is your tent? Your airflow coming through your tent. Where is your airline and air stone? Do you have your air pump that's pumping hot air from the tent right into your nutrient solution, just constantly keeping it warm? Or can you move that air pump outside of your tent and maybe somehow provide it with a cooler source of air, so then now we're pumping colder air into our nutrient solution? Can you wrap your hydro buckets with a insulative wrap? I mean, this is we're talking about for people who really have extreme temperatures that they can't get past. I mean, this is one way to insulate from those hot temperatures, and it works well. Can you control your temperature in your tent a little bit better so it's just not blazing hot? You know, lights that have a removable driver that you can put on top of your tent. I mean, that's the major heat source from the lights. So if you have that inside of your tent is just always hot and you're always exhausting, and it's just like it's hard to get past that. But if it's on the outside of your tent, then you don't have to exhaust as much. For me, that really works well to control my temperatures. So these are a bunch of the things that I find that work well to control temperature. And the last thing, let's just not forget also, is water quality, and the what you're building your nutrient solution with. So sometimes water quality is just not great. For instance, at one point, you know, I had a fairly large grow, and I would fill these large reservoirs with water, and then I would pull from there when I was mixing my nutrient solution. And these large reservoirs eventually, you know, like anything, you get accumulation of, you know, little bits of stuff. And now I had a contamination source that I wasn't really aware of. So I was contaminating and I was having issues with getting plants to thrive. And everything else was fine, but it was my water source contamination. And how I got past that, of course, is I cleaned my reservoirs, my holding tanks. But then also I bought one of those little blue filters that you use just to filter water for camping, or I think they're called RV filters or whatever. Just to polish the water. You know, it took out all the little bits of anything that may still be coming from there, and it polished my water, so I had a nice clean water source. And immediately, you know, I went right back to where I needed to be. Water quality in general. A lot of people I've seen presenting that they have problems, and it's been they're on well water, or their water is too high parts per million. Those are potentials. But one of the things I really recommend to kind of insurance against issues with your nutrient solution and your roots, to ensure health, is using a couple products. Number one is using a product like Hygrozyme. Hygrozyme is going to inhibit root rot. It's an enzyme that's going to go in there. So number one, it's going to inhibit root rot, and number two, it's going to, you know, any kind of little plant debris or roots that get knocked around or maybe get knocked off your plant, those eventually will decay and rot, and then those can potentially be sources for root rot to take hold, or root issues to take hold. And these enzymes are going to basically consume any kind of little organics like that, and create a food source for your plant, but also just eliminate those rot spots from potentially happening. The second thing is, and you can use it in conjunction with enzymes, but you just have to make sure you're using it in the right amounts, is using like clear lines from Current Culture, Cultured Solutions. This is going to create a sanitized environment for your roots. So really, to dial this in, we're talking about using an Oort meter, and I can go into that on another video. But basically, just for the same reason, if you want to look at why does a pool not go rotten, is because they sanitize it with using a chlorine, and then they use an Oort meter to make sure it's not too sanitized and it's not too toxic, but to make sure they hit a certain level. Same as hot tubs, same as drinking water. Oort meter is used to measure the sanitization level of our drinking water. So when we get drinking water coming out of our taps, we know that it's not contaminated because it's been sanitized to a point where it's, nothing can survive in it. And we can use that same principle for deep water culture. We can use a sanitizing agent like clear lines, and this is a hypochlorous acid. This is going to create a sanitized environment, so bad things just can't occur and can't grow in your root zone. And sometimes, I use it always because it's like a little bit of insurance. Hygrozyme and clear lines in my nutrient solution is just always a must, because I just don't want to, deal with potentially losing a crop. It's a small investment that's going to, pay for itself, because, allows us to get to harvest and have a nice yield. So thehydrobucket.com, that's where we sell all of our gear. But thank you for the question, and keep them coming. I love talking on deep water culture and growing and helping growers get past any kind of problems that they might have.